The Stranger in the Rain, standing next to the cash table. In a trembling voice, I said, "Around 300 to 350 mons, approximate 12,000 to 14,000 kilograms." Right at that moment, the sky broke open, and it started pouring. The rain began to pelt the ground with a roaring sound. Amidst the pitch-black darkness and the flashes of lightning, the electricity suddenly went out. In the dark, the man slowly said, "Music, I want all of it." Hearing these words made my blood run cold, because 300 to 350 mons of watermelon are usually bought by 30 to 40 wholesalers combined. And this stranger wanted to buy everything alone. Astonished, I asked, "Uncle, what will you do with so many watermelons?" He looked at me and replied, "Will you decide whether to sell your watermelons based on my answer?" Music? I stopped in my tracks. I hesitated. No. After that, my father started bargaining with him, but outside, music, the storm, and rain were raging. The laborer said, "In this rain and darkness, music, I can't weigh the goods. Let the rain ease up first." We all agreed. It was decided that work would begin as soon as the rain stopped. But nobody knew when that would be. My father, the laborers, and the others went and sat on one side of the warehouse. I stayed music at the cash table, and right beside me, sitting in total silence, was that mysterious man. I kept looking at him repeatedly. Music, for some reason, it felt like a terrifying, unknown mystery was hidden inside him. I decided to make use of this rainy downtime and slowly started a conversation. Then suddenly I blurted out, "Uncle, the way you talk feels very mysterious to me." He looked at me and smiled faintly. That smile was not normal. The curiosity inside my chest grew even more. Without waiting, I spoke up again. "Uncle, if there is a mystery, why don't you tell me? We're just sitting here anyway. It will pass the time." To tell you the truth, I was so consumed by curiosity that I didn't even ask for his name or identity. He said slowly, "One shouldn't try to know every mystery, child." Loud laughter. "Otherwise, you too will get trapped in the web of mystery." His words sent a shiver down my spine, but my curiosity didn't fade. Instead, it grew even stronger. Music. I pleaded with him repeatedly. Finally, he said, "I can tell you, but there is one condition." I immediately asked, "What condition?" He replied, "You can only know my mystery for as long as it rains. The moment the rain stops, I will not listen to any more of your requests." Without a second thought, I agreed. He said, "It was the first day of Pohila Baishak, Bengali New Year, in 1979, a remote village in the Thakurgang district, surrounded by paddy fields, with a narrow mud road running through the middle. And at the edge of the village stood a massive, old banyan tree that everyone avoided, especially after sunset. That year, Baishak was strangely hot. The air smelled of dry cotton, carrying a strange, tense excitement. But Rashid Ali, a poor day laborer, had no time to think about such things. Since morning, he had been riddled with anxiety. His 8-year-old daughter, Reena, was throwing a tantrum demanding to eat hilsa fish today. Reena had said, "Everyone eats hilsa on Pohila Baishak. Why shouldn't we?" Looking at his daughter's face, Rashid couldn't say no. Poverty was his lifelong companion. Still, he decided to go to the market. On the way to the market, at the edge of the village, lay that banyan tree. People said, a bazaar used to sit here once. But after a few bizarre incidents, no one came near it after dusk. After walking for a while, just as Rashid arrived right in front of the banyan tree, he suddenly saw something underneath it. Placed side by side on a banana leaf was a pair of large, shimmering hilsa fish. Seeing the two fish, Rashid froze. The fish were so fresh, it looked like they had just been pulled from the river. But there was no one around. No people, not even a shadow. Rashid stood there for a few minutes, music. The hot wind suddenly died down. The birds stopped chirping, music. An unnatural silence enveloped the area. An inexplicable trembling began deep inside his chest, music. Still, he thought someone might have dropped them by mistake. He waited another 5 minutes, but no one came. In the end, poverty triumphed over logic. He picked up the 2 fish. The moment he touched the fish, a strange shudder ran through his chest. It felt like the ground beneath the banana leaf was wet, as if something had been lying there for a long time.
But he didn't think much of it then.
Pushing logic and illogic aside, Rashid only thought of the smile on his daughter's face. Overjoyed, he returned home with the 2 fish. The moment the fish were presented to Rashid's wife, Saleha, her eyes widened in shock. She knew her husband's financial situation well, and these 2 fish seemed like a sky-high dream. Before picking up the fish, Saleha shot a suspicious question at her husband. 2 such massive fish. Where did you get so much money? Hearing his wife's question, Rashid lost his temper a bit. Your job is to cook, and mine is to provide. I brought fish. That's what matters. What will you do knowing where I got it from? Go and cook it nicely, quickly. My little darling wanted to eat fish. In the evening, the hill saw was cooked. Rina was eating and laughing happily. Rashid's wife, Saleha, remarked, "The fish smells a bit strange, doesn't it?" Rashid replied, "It must have come by truck from Barisal or Khulna. A little smell is normal." Everyone finished their meal. The night grew deep. Saleha stood up to go to the restroom. The inside of the house was drowned in semi-darkness. A hurricane lamp was burning, but its light felt useless, dim, lifeless, and unsettling. As her eyes fell upon the mud floor of the room, Saleha's heart skipped a beat. Wet footprints, as if someone had just walked by. At first, she thought Rina might have spilled water, but she realized her mistake immediately. Those were not human footprints. The prints were unnaturally long and strangely narrow, as if they didn't belong to a human, but to something else, something far more terrifying. The footprints came from the outside into the room, but they didn't lead back out anywhere. With an unknown unease in her heart, Saleha stepped out from the room onto the veranda. Beyond the veranda was a massive courtyard. On one side of the courtyard, a bamboo grove was swallowed by darkness, and on the other side was an outdoor pit latrine. The night was deep and everything was silent. Having swallowed the day's heat, the night seemed to radiate an eerie coldness. Slowly, step by step, Saleha stepped down from the veranda into the courtyard. In rural Bengal, verandas are built slightly elevated. Yet today, everything felt different. Despite the moonlight in the sky, a strange, heavy darkness loomed all around. She began walking toward the toilet. Right at that moment, a foul stench music hit her nose. It smelled rotten, like stagnant, putrid river water, like something that had been dead for days. Yet there was no canal, ditch, or river nearby. Saleha's heart began to thud wildly. She felt like she wasn't alone. Something was surrounding her. Just as she reached the front of the toilet, a familiar voice echoed from behind. "Won't you eat fish? He'll saw fish." That voice belonged to her husband, Rashid. Hearing her husband's voice should have brought relief. But today, there was a strange, icy coldness in that voice. Saleha slowly turned around, and what she saw next, she was completely unprepared for. Rashid was standing there, but his face was no longer human. His entire face, music, was covered in fish scales. His skin seemed to have sloughed off, turning fish-like. His eyes were unnaturally static. Saleha did not have the strength to bear this sight. Her vision went black, and she lost consciousness. The next morning, Saleha opened her eyes in her own bed. Rashid was sitting beside her. Anxiety clouded his eyes. "What happened to you?" Rashid asked. "What were you doing in front of the toilet last night, talking about fish scales?" The mention of fish scales brought the events of last night crashing back into Saleha's mind like a thunderbolt. She confessed everything to him. Rashid listened intently. Then, steeling himself, he said, "When I brought the fish, you didn't look pleased. You didn't accept it with a smile. You've been harboring all these absurd thoughts, and that's why your mind is playing tricks on you." He said these words merely to comfort her. But deep down, an unknown fear and a burning question had taken root in his own heart. Had something truly happened? Amidst all this, their little daughter was sitting quietly on one side. Her face was pale with terror, Rashid thought she was scared from seeing her mother's condition. He called his daughter close, wanting to comfort her. But what the little girl whispered next made Rashid's blood run cold. The girl whispered, "Father, last night a horrible rotten smell was coming. The stench woke me up. I looked up at the ceiling and saw a creature, half human and half fish, staring down at me in anger." Hearing the identical stories from both his wife and daughter, Rashid had nothing left to doubt. His heart sank. He realized that he had mistakenly invited an unknown, invisible enemy into his own home. And he had already realized his blunder. Rashid was plunged into deep thought. He understood where the mistake had been made, but that realization only weighed heavier on him. The bizarre state of his wife and child broke his spirit. To get away from everything, Rashid walked back to that banyan tree where he had found the fish. He went and sat down slowly beneath the tree music. An eerie silence surrounded him. Right then, Rashid began to feel that he wasn't alone. It felt as if something else was around him, invisible, silent, yet distinctly present. The atmosphere under the banyan tree was unnatural. There was no wind, yet the leaves of the tree were swaying slowly. A cold, deep, icy sensation enveloped him. It felt as though this place had transported him somewhere else. His chest tightened. Still, mastering himself, he kept questioning, "Why is this happening? I didn't see anything. Then why is this only happening to my wife and daughter?" Question after question, but there was no answer. As time ticked away, the afternoon faded and evening descended. Finally, with a heavy heart, Rashid decided it was time to return home. Standing up wearily, he walked back toward his house. The moment he stepped into the house, he knew he would have to face questions today. Clear restlessness, anxiety, and suppressed anger were visible in Saleha's eyes. She directly demanded, "You still haven't told me where you got that fish? Where did you buy it from? Music, that fish. We have a child in this house. What are you hiding from me?" The questions came one after another. Rashid stood frozen. What could he say? He couldn't figure it out. The words choked in his throat. He just kept listening, but he seemed to have lost even the will to answer. He silently went into the room and sat down. Then Saleha entered the room too. Her voice was laced with irritation and anxiety. "What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything?" Rashid replied softly, "I'm not feeling well. Don't ask unnecessary questions. Just let me rest a bit." He didn't go to work that day. The night gradually deepened, and with it, the unknown fear inside Rashid's chest began to solidify. Dinner was over. Saleha looked morose. She was still searching for answers. Rashid's face showed clear distress. Little Rina could sense this abnormal environment very well. Suddenly, she ran over and stood by her father's side. In a tender voice, she said, "Father, if I hadn't asked to eat Hilsaw fish, none of this would have happened." It was a small sentence, but it carried a massive implication. Rashid's heart shuddered. He quickly pulled his daughter into an embrace. "What are you saying, darling? You shouldn't say such things. Nothing has happened. Why are you scared? Father is right here, isn't he? Maybe you just had a bad dream. Tonight, sleep holding on to Father. Nothing will happen." Those words were meant for comfort, not truth. Giving his daughter false assurances, Rashid lay down with her cradled to his chest. The light in the room was burning just like the previous night. But tonight, sleep was nowhere to be found. Both Rashid and Saleha lay awake, consumed by the exact same fear. Rina realized that if she didn't sleep, her parents would worry even more. So she closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. Time ticked on. The night grew deeper. Eventually, one by one, everyone fell asleep. Suddenly, Rashid began to have a dream. He saw himself standing right under that same banyan tree where he had sat in the afternoon. But the place wasn't the same anymore. Surrounded by countless Hilsaw fish, countless mounds piled upon mounds. But they weren't fresh. All of them were rotten. Music melted away. And the stench of that rotting fish was so foul, so unbearable, that his stomach churned music. It felt like everything inside his stomach would vomit out right then. He struggled to breathe, but he couldn't move. Then he noticed a group of people sitting around. They were eating those rotten fish with greedy frenzy and vicious hunger. Though they looked like humans, they were not. Their skin was slimy and deformed, covered in fish scales, just as his wife and daughter had described. They were tearing into raw fish, blood dripping down the sides of their mouths. Their eyes were static, terrifying, and inhuman. It looked like they had been starving for ages. And those fish were never ending. No matter how much they ate, new fish kept piling up in front of them. An accursed feast. An endless hunger. Suddenly, one of them stopped. He slowly raised his head and looked at Rashid. His eyes were so full of rage, so terrifying, it felt like those eyes would swallow Rashid whole. They were cold like a fish's, but inside, a fire was burning. Rashid's chest froze. His body went numb. Then, one by one, all the people stopped eating. Everyone stared at him simultaneously. Dead silence fell everywhere, except for their piercing gaze. And then, in a distorted, bizarre voice, a mix of male and female tones, they began to chant in unison. "You have stolen our rightful share. The consequences will be devastating. Just wait." The voices began to echo all around. The leaves of the banyan tree suddenly shook violently. The surrounding darkness grew even denser. And at that moment, Rashid realized this wasn't just a dream. It was a warning sign, the beginning of an unknown punishment. Then, suddenly, Rashid woke up to a piercing, shattering scream. "Father!" Rashid bolted upright. The air in the room felt suddenly heavy, and his heart was thumping wildly. The horrific imagery of the dream was still flashing before his eyes. Rina was writhing on the bed, clutching her stomach in agony. Her screams were shaking the entire room. "Father, my stomach is burning." Rashid's mind went blank. He quickly placed his hand on his daughter's forehead. Her body was burning with a fever. Her forehead was drenched in sweat. It looked as though she had lost all the strength in her body. Rina was thriving, trembling, and breathing rapidly. Seeing that sight, Rashid's chest wrenched in pain. His own body was soaked in sweat. The terror of the dream combined with this horrific reality left him completely paralyzed. He couldn't figure out what to do. His mind was turning into a blur. Saleha was sitting in a corner. Her eyes were wide open, her face deathly pale. Lost to fear, her voice seemed entirely gone. She couldn't say anything, only staring at her own child with trembling eyes. Inside the room, an unknown terror, an invisible pressure, and a silent dread seemed to close in on them from all sides. Suddenly, Saleha's silence transformed into an unknown, malevolent force. A heavy silence descended upon the room. A silence, music, so deafening it made his ears ring. In a trembling voice, Rashid began to say, What's the matter? Why are you sitting there? Hold the girl. Clear his throat, help me." Saleha didn't answer. She kept her head down and remained seated in a corner of the room, completely motionless, like a stone statue. Suddenly, she slowly raised her head, and at that exact moment, the most terrifying sight revealed itself. When Saleha looked at her husband, Rashid's heart stopped. Her eyes were completely hollow, awoke, yet devoid of life. The next moment, abruptly, she dropped to the ground, flat on her stomach like a lizard. Her lips curled into an unnatural smile, a smile so distorted, so freezing cold. And then, crawling like a lizard, she began to move toward him,